who are now facing charges for assault 3 misdemeanor charges. I know that in particular was something that got our comment section's attention, talking about misdemeanor charges that are being filed in Alabama.
I don't
But
see how
also
anybody
Daryl Albert saying they are nowhere near finished. I think was his exact choice of words. They are not near finished with this investigation. And the individual who was swinging the folding chair,
off the boat,
folding chair wielding man,
they were
as well. He is asked to contact law enforcement to participate, of course, in the process, be interviewed, and so that law enforcement personnel, the investigators, can determine that person's role and whether or not charges are warranted, specifically with the folding chair component of this brawl. You haven't seen the folding chair video on social media. That, of course, has been making the rounds in addition to this particular angle coming from the Harriet Riverside or Riverfront.
Yeah, because she jumped in. She got the business too. That folding chair was like, what?
That they were waiting
that
for this docking position.
Explanation of force. Everyone was unmarried. And it was a woman who was hit with the folding chair. So if anybody committed any kind of cognizable offense, it would be him.
But she jumped in and tried to attack him before she got hit with that chair.
In other words, there's a disparate force situation.
Yeah,
women are not.
A lot of questions, a lot of comments, a lot of ones that we just can't
when a man
answer at this stage in the investigation.
Bare-handed force, okay, as long as it's not unreasonable, all right, fine. He picked up something to try and use as a weapon. It became disparate force. So that becomes outside of the parameters of self-defense. Now, what they should have done is ask any people who are in here who want to do good citizen stuff to stop this from happening, to come forth and be interviewed and perhaps be subject to persuasion to going in and swearing out a warrant. Now, they didn't do that. So now the point is if now you charge the people and they say, I take the fifth. I have a right to be free from self-incrimination. You cannot make me say a damn thing, and I'm not going to give any evidence because anything I say might tend to incriminate me. Okay, well, we give you immunity. Put it in writing. Okay, then he might say something. But at this point, you see, they've started a prosecution, and they don't have any admissible evidence. You see,
okay, but isn't it true?
You want, but you have to authenticate it. Somebody has to raise their hand and swear to it. And see, you don't have that yet. So did they bring the person who took the video down as a friendly witness who's going to swear to what he saw and be the party that swears out the warrant that results in their arrest? Or did they go to a grand jury, and which would remove all of the other people from potential liability or false or malicious prosecution or reckless, etc., depending upon what state you're in? See, there are all kinds of things in here, and it just strikes me as some dumb idiots didn't know the law, which is typical.
It is typical because I don't know the law like that, right? All that you just said, I couldn't even I couldn't even listen to this video 12 times and repeat it.
Well, that's why they have experts, yours truly and other people that have devoted lifetimes to being learned and experienced in the law and wise in the ways of the world. Let me give you another.
Then that means we can't be idiots, right? Because if we are not the experts, then we are just, like you said, citizens, civilians.
But you're not a magistrate. You aren't pretending to be one. You aren't somebody that's charged with enforcing the law. You're not an officer of the state, and you're not pretending to be one. But I'll give you another example. All right, this idiot Bragg, who's DA in New York, he indicts Trump for essentially bribing Stormy Daniels to be quiet and also bribe one of the corporate entities involved for not giving a detailed recitation of why they paid Stormy Daniels money. Now, to show you how stupid what happened is, forget Trump. We have legal stuff. Oh, right to remain silent. That's called your Miranda rights. Miranda was not a good guy, but we know our rights through Miranda, who was not a good guy. Well, what happens if you have to bribe somebody not to embarrass you? What is that? What do you call it?
I don't know.
Blackmail. Blackmail.
Okay, there you go. You smart, girl.
So this dumb crap idiot Bragg indicted the victim of felony blackmail for being blackmailed. Now, American law encourages settlement in lieu of trial, so it doesn't make any difference whether or not there's validity to it. The cost of defending it might be worth more than a payoff to settle it. So when you settle it, there's a gag order in place. So if the corporation that paid the money out disclosed fully what it was about, it would have violated the court's gag order. So it would have broken the law. So this damn fool Bragg indicts a corporate entity for following the law and the orders of a court. You see how stupid that looks when you get to looking at it and you say, what was wrong with this guy? He indicted, whether you like Trump or not, he indicted the victim of a blackmail attempt, a successful blackmail attempt, which in the amount concerned is a serious felony in the state of New York. Then he turns around and he indicts a corporate entity because they followed the law. See, it's dumb because he obviously sat there in the first year of law school and didn't pay attention. And if New York is like some states, that part of the law that deals with criminal law, you don't even have to pass that because there's no big money in that. Nobody gives a damn. But those are the things that establish your status as a citizen. So we didn't even get that. And by the way, on the thing about the declassified or classified papers, the case is the United States Department of Navy versus Egan, 1988 U.S. Supreme Court. There are a number of concurrent opinions, and essentially what they all say is the President of the United States has an unrestricted right to classify or declassify absolutely anything he chooses to classify or declassify. He can overrule the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's the chief diplomat and he's the commander-in-chief. And if Congress passes a law saying he can't, the case is Marbury versus Madison, which is 220 years old, it says, guess what? That act is unconstitutional. So they can't. Doesn't say anything about President, Vice President Biden. He didn't have that. By the way, that's like they make an analogy to the same authority a president has to pardon or commute his federal sentence. It's unquestioned. Nobody can gainsay it. Nobody can go back behind and undo it. So the law is already there. So what are you getting? Ignorance of the law? Or are you getting somebody that's taking advantage of the situation, knowing what the negative outcome is going to be for their position, because that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to do precisely what was anticipated by the Bill of Rights, which is they aren't criminal rights. They're to keep the power of the state, of the government, from being used to engage in political oppression. See, the idea is if you don't like somebody, vigorous and open debate in public will resolve the issue. Now, we don't have that because people are suppressing free speech, so they're trying to bend the rules. So instead of having to counter what's going on, they can restrict what's said. I'll give you one. Okay, this whole thing, California wants to make it a crime. If somebody says, hell no, you can't take my 9-year-old child and put them in some track without telling me that you're trying to get him to be a eunuch and cut his dick off. What the hell's wrong with you? See, that's totally out of line. Or how about this one? the Bud guy, you know, in the pink, well, the blue panties and bra, he says he's celebrating 365 days of being a woman. He's not a woman. He doesn't do what any of you ladies can do. That's why we revere you.
We had that conversation the other day.
I know. Where was you at like two, 3, 4 conversations ago with that?
Yeah, we had that conversation the other day. You missed that.
They're trying to make that illegal to discuss it. That's like National Socialist Workers Party. You know what that stands for? You ever heard of it?
No, you tell us.
The National Socialist Workers Party. You've heard of it.
Oh, yeah. That was with Mao Zedong, right?
No.
Oh, what socialist party was that?
National Socialist Workers Party. The acronym in German is spelled Nazi, Nazi. As in Adolf and Eichmann and Goebbels and Goering and Heinrich Himmler and all that bunch of folks. That's Nazi stuff. It's fascism. And if you want to see what it's about, it's pretty much matching it. Orwell wrote a book called Animal Farm. If you don't feel like reading it, Google it. You can find Animal Farm, 1952. The CIA did it. And it's pretty much word for word what's in the book. The animals had a revolution. The animals had a revolution over this farm. They had a constitution. The animals had a constitution. It said all animals are equal. The pigs staged a little counter-revolution, and then they put up on the side of the barn a little cross, and it says all animals are equal, but pigs are more equal than others. That's what you're getting right now. Look at it. So these clowns are counting on the fact that, well, let me say this. I had this show for 15 years. I was designated a qualified arbitrator under California law by the California Supreme Court. I'd been elected to 16 years worth of term as a criminal court judge, been a private defense lawyer, ran the public defender's office, trained their capital defense team, been the first black prosecutor in the history of the city of Memphis, worked for EEOC, all that crap for years, 50 years. And what do they want to do? They want to say, you don't know anything. This is stuff that is not real. You know, you somehow or another is just like everybody else, but you made some wise decisions. But you want to know what the truth of the matter is? Most of what I did on that show, I didn't have to go to law school to do. You know where I got it? I learned it in the 5th and 6th grade in elementary school because it was that basic.
Wow.
But they don't teach it anymore. And I mean, really? When I went to school, they were saying, everybody, all of you colored people need to take all of the vocational classes because you'll be much happier working with your hands rather than troubling your minds trying to figure things out. So I went to school when they had that kind of mentality. So still in the 5th and 6th grade, we learned these things. What is this happen now? They don't have to learn how to cursively write because we can put them on the cell phone. But what happens if your cell phone's battery runs dead? What happens? Cell service is down. You don't need to. Learn how to learn your multiplication tables. You know, you walk in places, they can't do change. They got to press the pictures on the cash register.
Well, I want to ask you, do you think, I'm sorry, Niche, you was asking something. I wanted to know if he thought Trump was good at trying to win, or what's going on with Trump right now.
Well, I think,
I'm sorry.
I think the election in 2020 was not a legit election. Tell you why. January 2021, the Justice Department issued all that rigmarole about there was no cheating or impropriety on the election. They issued that on Tuesday. Thursday, they issued their latest update on Shelby County, where I live. And it said, once again, the corrupted election machines failed to deliver a fair election. They were hacked. And the vote was controlled rather than cast. So which one is true? What the Justice Department says in a specific instance, or what they said 2 days before?
Let me ask you this question, Judge. So, since the brawl wasn't your thing, right? What do you think? Do you think we going backwards? Or do you think that we're trying to unify more? Or what do we need to do to unify also?
I don't want to unify with everybody. A lot of them.
I know that's right. I heard that. Okay, go on ahead with your radical self.
I was a grown man. I graduated from UCLA in 1969. And I know a whole lot of people died, got locked up, got jacked up because so many snitches, informants, and low-down hustlers and pimps tried to work the movement for their own purposes. See, I know some of these cowardly Negroes that were scared to death, wouldn't do anything, would piss their pants, literally. And then in later years, they became militant, experts on militancy. Yeah, really? Yeah, you. I remember you. You know I remember you. I promised you an ass whipping before you died, but he died on me of a heart attack. So and I remember when you had on those gray slacks, you kissed him, you got so scared.
You know, that reminded me of that movie, I think it was I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, when he said everybody was militant and then they started looking for jobs. Right, and then unemployment. Yeah, that.
part of militancy was getting a job and getting an income and being self-sustaining. You couldn't have a revolution if you were broke.
Right. He was so militant, and then he came out with that white wife, and then that little boy said, Abraham Lincoln.
And you know
Sakina,
what? That thing where he had the goldfish in his shoes. People had those.
You went there with that.
Hey, he was casket sharp, but he's in the wrong era.
Yes.
Look, let me tell you when that stuff went wrong. 1968, they had Black Caesar starring Fred the Hammer Williams. He was a football player. And he was the hero of the movie. And everybody black wanted to go, but we walked out of there, man. What in the world was that? They made this drug dealer the hero. And he drove off into the sunrise in a limo smoking a big Churchill cigar with a whole bunch of dead bodies or the warehouse all done in because he was becoming the drug lord in Los Angeles. This was out in Long Beach, man. No LAPD showed up, man. You know that's unreal. 18 months later, Rod O'Neill's playing Superfly. Now, prior to Superfly, everybody had afro, beard,
I love that movie. Love that movie.
I hated it. We were actually going to find Rod O'Neill and beat his ass, but, you know, it didn't happen. Why? Because brothers with power to the people, afros, beards, dashikis, fatigue jackets, jeans, stuff ready for the revolution. And then that movie came out, and I remember it was in LA first, and then I did this intern thing in DC in 72. And my roommate and I, we went down 14th Street and we passed this theater. It's not there now, but they came out the door of the theater to the end of the block, down the long side of the block, around the corner, the short side, up the long side, and then back around, and the line went around the whole block. And all these colored folk out there to see that crazy ass movie where they were glorifying cocaine. Man, I want to give me some of that cocaine, man. That's deep, man. You know, hey. No, and see, after that movie, instead of afro, beard, dashikis, plain ones, not bright ones, so you could blend in to the stuff hit the fan. Fatigue jackets, jean jackets, you know, ready to get out. Everybody was wearing platforms and bell bottoms.
But that's not why we was glorifying it. We was glorifying it because they fought, they right. when they actually pulled out their guns and had shootout with the cops. They actually beat some cops up. They actually did some stuff to fight back and empower the people. And they took sometimes the money from all their prostitution and everything and bought food for the community.
I believe what he's saying is that they misjudged them.
They should have been put on a wall and shot. See, a lot of us went out on patrol.
Right.
A lot of us went out on patrol. And what that was, we'd be riding 4 deep in one of those old cars with the wide seats. And we'd have
on the rooftop.
Dig in the thing with the gangster thing.
No, that's in the 70s. This is in the 60s.
Right.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So we're riding in the cars. We've got the carbines and shotguns, and when the police acting crazy, we drive up behind them and they straighten up. But you see, it's legal to be armed. No problem. So they're looking at legally armed folks, so they treaded very lightly.
Right. I think it was a big misrepresentation of how they took a bad rep, and made it look like it was something that it wasn't. I really believe that how they were making like maybe Black Panthers look like they were thugged out when they were really doing a good thing, but they made it look like they were out here making the streets look like a bad thing, and they were out here tearing up and they were protesting. And
see, it depends on what Panther chapter you're talking about. We were asking the ones up in the Bay Area, man, do not do this. But we need the PR, man. We need the money. No, don't do this.
But it had to go wrong somewhere before it. I mean, they were all on one accord.
And no, they were not on one accord.
It had to be, for every action, there's a reaction.
No, they were not on one accord. I recruited John Hudgens, Bunchy Carter, chairman of the Panther Party in Southern California, Geronimo Pratt, the enforcer, G, Nathaniel Clark, Elaine Brown, etc., etc., etc.
Okay.
We all worked together. And bottom line was, we were having meeting after meeting with the folk up in the Bay Area. Man, don't do this. Well, they wanted the money in the PR. They wanted the grandstand. So we are out on patrols. Everybody's taking their turn. We had designated nights where you had to go out on patrol. And then as soon as they went in, Ronald Reagan, within 2 weeks, signed a new law saying it's illegal. So then LAPD, Oakland Police Department, San Diego Police Department, Orange County, the Highway Patrol. Now they have cars. It's not legal anymore. So they started pulling people over, and there were gunfights and people are dying left and right. I mean, I lost about 11 or 12 folk in 5 or 6 weeks behind what happened.
Right, but
that's crazy
anymore. So that means there was a reaction to something if they were not.
Yeah, it was a reaction to some grandstanding stupid Negroes that wanted to go floor show and act counter-revolutionary. We called it adventurism. Now, by 1968, 69, 70, the Panther Party was effectively dead because it was too heavily infiltrated. John Huggins and Bunchy Carter, I just got through talking to them, walked out of the cafeteria in Bunch Hall. It was 12:40 something p.m. right afternoon. And Elaine Brown and I were walking up the staircase. We heard some gunfire. We thought it was two places. We ran up to the third floor. Somebody had shot up my office. We run back down. Bunchy is propped up on one arm, groaning with blood dripping out his mouth. John's on his back, eyes wide open and blood bubbling out of his mouth. 4 folk from the US organization, that's Maulana Ron Karinga, the person that started Kwanzaa. We knew who they were. Hell, 2 of them were twins and the other 2, and everybody knew them by name. They had been up in there during this tense meeting. Karinga was trying to take over the Black Studies program at various colleges, and we were saying, hell no, we're not letting you pimp this out. So it went down. And, you know, that's the way stuff used to roll like that.
I was in college when I can remember us going out there to protest for Geronimo Pratt when he, you know, right before he touched down. That was, you know, quite the interesting thing, but I didn't understand it.
They shoot him back in 1969. That's cool. You know, I guess restoration. And they're the reasons that H. Rap Brown went to jail. I was one of Brown's bodyguards for a week. He was in LA talking around. And we said, don't let these folk touch your stuff. He let them take their his luggage out to the LAX, the airport. They snuck a disassembled carbine in there, and he was under indictment from the feds. So that's what he went to jail off of. They set him up. Low down scoundrels. And he used to sit there and torture women. He wound up doing 1 year and 1 day in the California State Penitentiary for torturing 3 black women. He was paranoid. He thought they were trying to poison him. Well, guess what? 2 weeks after he got out, he was made a tenured professor for the state university system.
Wow.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on. See, and people don't even get it these days.
So wait, talk a little bit more about the dissension in the Black Party and the Black Panther Party. I want to hear a little bit more about what was the main reason of the dissension?
Because some folk wanted to they were getting notoriety and they were becoming famous. And other folks said, man, we don't need to do that. Let the party become famous for what it does, but keep everything shadowy, because you've got the SIS unit from LAPD. That's the Special Investigative Services unit. They're down here setting people up to get killed. They got Ron Karinga and his US organization killing them all for them. Killing us all for them. So we got to watch our step. We don't need that PR. Well, we got to get it. You see, they were raising money. They said money was necessary to operate. We said, get a job. You know? So there was a thing. There was a turnover. Sherman Banks was the chairman of the Black Panther Party, Southern California. He bailed because he just said, this stuff is just adventuristic. It's crazy. This ain't even real anymore. We made it real again. Bunchy Carter, who had been president of the Slauson gang, who was illiterate when he went in, started to do time, did what Malcolm did. He memorized Webster's dictionary and he started writing poetry. I recruited him to UCLA under a special admissions high potential program because I was impressed by his writing. So we brought him in. John Hudgens was from New England, and he was in there. And we brought him in because he was outstanding. Elaine Brown had been a secretary out at UCLA for a long time, so we recruited her. Nathaniel Clark was a young kid. Had a lot of potential. We brought him in. Geronimo Pratt had done 4 tours in the NAM. He was a sergeant from the Green Berets. And he was real hardcore, so we brought him in, and we did our particular thing. And by the way, while this was going on, a friend of mine, 2 friends of mine, we were running a playground at Trinity Avenue Elementary School. You may have heard of 2 of our kids. One was a skinny little 12-year-old on the playground. He's dead now, but you know him as the singer Barry White with the deep voice. One of our 14-year-old volunteer on the playground was the last person executed on California's death row, Tookie Williams. Barry's mama listened, and we got him out of the swamp. Tookie's mama wanted that check. We couldn't get him out of the swamp, so he just became the baddest alligator in the swamp. We taught him, and he wrote 6 kids' books where he tried to regurgitate what we taught him. And the governor, Schwarzenegger, should have commuted his sentence, but Schwarzenegger used to work out with him at Gold's Gym, so I guess that was too deep a connection. So, I mean, stuff was going on. It wasn't like people were not doing anything. It's just you got all the glorification people that were just scoundrels and pimping.
Can we ask you something?
Go ahead.
Can I ask you something?
Go ahead.
Have you seen that movie, They Clone Tyrone, or do you watch modern movies, or do you watch certain type of movies?
I know about it.
What do you think about it?
Nice fantasy.
He's a young guy who wrote it too, really young.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's sci-fi.
Will you ever forgive the enemy for what they did to us during Jim Crow times and before that?
They're all dead. I don't know any of them, but what's going on right now is not good. Your real enemy is Hollywood. I was out there number 15 years, number 1 or number 2 syndicated show in the country, not this Judge show. It was me, Judy, Oprah, and Phil in the same unit. I kicked Oprah's ass in the ratings for the last 4 years running. Bill just annihilated. Him, and me and Judy were going back and forth every time I started beating her. They gave her a new rating scheme so she could stay in front. Yeah, I know this. So, yeah. Okay?
No, I'm saying, Judge Joe Brown.
Racism.
What you knowing, what you knowing, the Black Panther Party members and things of this nature, and you in the 50s, 40s, and all that. I know it was bad, hard times.
It was in the 60s. And
okay, 60s. So 60s. What I'm saying to you is, how do you today you can look back at those times and say to yourself like that never's on your mind?
Well, it's like this. I know some guys. I grew up in California. I knew people that married Japanese wives who fought in World War II in the Pacific. I know people that married German wives that fought in Germany in World War II. I know people that had Korean wives. They fought in Korea in the Korean War in the early 50s. And I know some people brought back some Vietnamese wives. So you can forgive folk. I mean, it's like nothing personal. You run into them, they're just like you. So it's all about principle and why you're there. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the guy you're fighting, nothing to forgive. That's like being in a football game. I played football at Dorsey High and UCLA. The guy that you're opposing is trying to beat the crap out of you. You're trying to
go
beat the crap
Bruins.
out of you. My brother was Muhammad Ali's bodyguard when he fought Foreman. And Foreman and Ali became good friends. So did Frazier.
I mean, but actually living in those times as I did to myself, when we couldn't even walk on the same side of the street with the enemy. And I will never forget those times coming from Atlantic City. That's why I was born and raised in Atlantic City, New Jersey, where I met Marvin Gaye and everybody in my school because they wasn't allowed to get dressed in the hotels where they were actually performing. I don't think I'll ever forgive it or ever forget the times. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, what year are you talking about?
Well, I guess if I was born in 65, we talking about 69.
So you're young.
Okay, well, I'm still saying what I remember, and I'm just saying during those times it was kind of hard in Atlantic City. I don't know how it was everywhere else.
I got to Atlantic City a lot in the 60s. I mean, I graduated from college in 1969, went back to law school. I mean,
okay. So that's about it for that. I just wanted to bring up Unscrambled Minds is one of the channels I sub to because it's a relatively new channel, but I found them to be rather Socratic for the most part in their discussions. But I do want to let everybody know that there's an issue with me when I go on the panel because I'm the white guy. And when I use terms like colored and black and things like that, I'm the racist. And so they consider me a racist almost entirely now because of something I did here this last week in regards to a song that they don't realize the origins of. And so they're trying to say I was plagiarizing by pointing out the one that they think wrote the song and then cut me off by calling me a racist because I referred to the subject and then didn't want to listen to the full explanation of what I thought was wrong about their presentation and the reality of the fact that the song that they said come from Rudy Ray Moore in 1971 was actually a plagiarism from a guy named Oscar Davis, who happened to have been the first, quote, African-American, unquote, radio broadcaster. Now, not only was he just the first black African-American radio broadcaster, but he was a civil rights activist. And a poem that he wrote called The Signifying Monkey is what the issue was. And they were saying that I was calling them monkeys, when in fact I was trying to help them see the origin wasn't from me or Rudy Ray Moore, but in fact an activist fighting for their own cause. And he's the one that used the term signified monkey. So let me explain the origin of the term signified monkey, because it has not so much to do with the term monkey, but the term signified as it relates to Ebonics and the consistent language. That's the problem. People have no concept of how to keep a language consistent. It keeps changing over time. And here we have political correctness. And now we're having transgender pronoun correctness. And you can't talk to anyone because of those things. Because everybody takes it for the literal term that they believe in, that is nothing but fiction. And they insist that you believe in their fiction. It's insanity. So please pay attention. Veracity, you got anything to say before we log out here tonight?
No, I'm just along for the ride. And I don't about you being racist. You don't come across to me as being racist. I mean, you out here putting out.
Yeah, I'm an activist, just like Oscar Moore or Oscar Davis. You know, it doesn't take a skin color to be active, and that's why I say I don't care so much what you say. I'm going to determine and judge you by what you say, because a man's intellect is a bias and limitation expressed by his vocabulary. So that's what I judge, is the words. And if they're not consistent, then I'm not going to pay too much attention to you unless you're willing to learn. So, and that's the thing about doing shit. You can't sit on your ass. You got to get up and do something. You have to be active. Go ahead.
Well, me personally, black and white means the same thing. They both redacted. So it doesn't, black, bleak, if you look at the spelling, it's the same thing. Black and blanc is the same word. A-E-I-O-U, all vowels are the same. So
yeah. Interesting thing you mentioned the vowels. You know, they have this scripture that talks about Yahweh. Yahweh. Now, if you take your vowels, the 5 vowels in the English language, and you rearrange them, reorder them, E-I-O-U-A, Yahweh.
Wow.
Each vowel produces a toroidal current. The consonants, not so much. They disrupt toroidal currents. So if you use the term Yahweh, it's all vowels, and the English language expresses it with nothing but other consonants.
Absolutely.
Even the A and the E are taken out, and it's Y-W, or what is it? Y-W-H-A? Yahweh? Y-A-W-H-A or something like that? Y-H-W-H. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I say, if you say black, if you say you're black, you redact it. If you say you white, you redact it. So it doesn't even make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming up, brother. Keep doing it. Like I said, I always appreciate the support on the panel, and I appreciate any criticisms. Well, I need the criticism. If I am posing that I know what I'm saying and somebody points out that I don't, I'm certainly going to be the first one to say, oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Let me correct myself. But you got to give me that opportunity. You can't just cut me off and start calling me racist. That's the war. You're inconsistent in your language. I'm going to point it out. And if I try to point it out, you cut me off. I can't explain how it's inconsistent. So
exactly. It's language. It's all about this lexicon that we use.
Yep. So again, I appreciate everybody. Thanks for your support. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button on the way out if you haven't. And remember, each one teach one. And in order to do that, you got to learn first. So you got to go through the trials and tribulations. And so remember, folks, I love you, but I don't give a fuck whether you love me back. I hope you're blessed and have a good night. Bye.
All right. Be well.
You too.